So you want to do rent-to-rent deals? You've been doing all this research and you kind of feel like you know your stuff, yet there's gaps in your knowledge, you don't know the roadmap, and what that means is because you don't really know what you're doing, you fear that you make mistakes, you over-procrastinate, and guess what? You're watching this instead of taking action. Well, what if I told you there was a clear roadmap, a deal ladder that all you've got to do is follow from A to Z and you're guaranteed to get deals fast? Wow, that would be cool. Well, on this video, I'm going to reveal the system that's allowed me and my mentees to get over 1,000 rent-to-rent deals. And all you've got to do is walk the ladder and you're going to get deals. When I first started in rent-to-rent, the biggest challenge for me was how do I go from no deal, okay, a standing start, to collecting my first set of keys? Because it's almost like, you know, trying to walk through the mud, trying to walk through the darkness, trying to stab at the dog, so to speak, when you first begin. And here's the thing, if you don't know where you're going, okay, if you haven't got the address to put in the sat nav, you're not going to end up at said location. And after a lot of failing, okay, not only with me, but then when helping other people, I realized I needed to create a deal ladder. In other words, a clear roadmap that anybody can follow with no experience that's going to get you the same result. And this has helped thousands of people now secure rent-to-rent deals, and I want to share it with you, okay? So we're all here for the same reason, right? We all want to get those elusive rent-to-rent deals, right? But here's the thing, the deals are at the top of the ladder. And we need to start at the bottom. And as we build up these different steps, we're going to get closer to that elusive deal. Big mistake people make is because they don't understand this framework, they skip steps. And by skipping steps, just like building a house, you're not going to have the correct foundations. So the first step, it always starts with what we call a lead. And a lead is essentially a landlord, an agent, a property that we feel like would be good for our target avatar. And when I say target avatar, that's just a fancy way to say our tenants, our guests, you know, if we're doing social living or whatever, social housing, like the provider and their requirements. So first things first, it starts with a lead. And what a lot of people do is they try to go from a lead to a deal, but it doesn't work like that. We now need to build the levels. So now I know what you're thinking. Lead sounds great, Simon, but how do I get those? Well, like I said, okay, the best lead, my favorite lead is a landlord. All right, a landlord that's got a property that is already available to let because I know it's qualified. So you don't just want to pick a random property. You want a property that is ideally available to let, okay? It's ideally, if they're looking to let the property, you've got the solution. It's pretty simple. Now, sometimes you can get properties that are available for sale, but for whatever reason, they may not be able to sell the property or they may still be open to this. So a lead is any landlord with a property available to let or for sale. And my favorite type of landlord lead is those that want to do that imminently. However, when you get really good at this and when you start to build funnels to attract landlords, we can actually be, I'm just going to call this F for future. We can future pace these clients. So a lot of rent-to-renters, when you're brand new, you are very reactive. And the problem with being reactive is when you only focus on properties that are available, they can be very competitive. And the way I managed to do 20 deals in my first year and then scale on average doing 3 to 5 deals every month was through targeting landlords before they even knew that they wanted to let the property or sell the property. Now that's where the real money is. But then aside from the landlords, a really, really good lead is the agent, the letting agents. Why? Because they have a stock of properties they are looking to let. Now, the challenge with letting agents, and this is what a lot of people struggle with, is a lot of the time they can be very protective over their deals. They can be very protective. And before you know it, they do not want to give you these deals. Now, I'm just going to level with you. Out of 10 agencies, generally speaking, 7 will just be a no. They'll just be a no. So if you call 10 agencies right now, 7 are going to tell you no. 1 will probably do company lets and they'll be like happy with it. 2, they'll be open to the idea, but you're probably going to have to go in and prove your credibility. But just so you know, when it comes to letting agent leads, 7 out of 10 will tell you no. I just want to be honest with you, but don't panic. So these are the leads, okay? And these are the different strategies to get leads. I've actually got 10 different ways of sourcing landlords, a couple of different strategies to agents, but that's for another video. Now, the second stage of this beautiful ladder is we now need to make sure that when we find this lead, we want to get them on the phone. Okay, so this is when we need to make the phone call. A lot of mistakes are made in between the lead and the call, because what will happen is you'll send a message, you'll fill out a form, and you will never actually build key rapport and key knowledge on the lead. So my favorite 2 strategies around this is the first key concept is speed to lead. So you need to set up all your notifications. So whenever you've got a new property on Rightmove that fits your requirements or other online portals, you need to make sure that you are calling that lead as quickly as possible. So the first big idea is speed to lead. The second one is once you're on the call, you do not want to overshare. You do not want to oversell. You do not want to sell the deal. All you want to be doing is selling level 3, which is the viewing. All right. All we want to do is go from call to property viewing. All right. That's all we want to do. And if you can get on the viewing, you're going to have so much more opportunity to build rapport, to learn more about the property, the landlord's motivations, to make an offer, that your chance of getting the deal is significantly higher. Now, I'm going to tell you a secret right now. Okay. Viewings are quite technical when done correctly. The viewing is the sales process. This is the meat. This is where things can go the right way or wrong way. The first big idea I want to share with you about a viewing is, on average, if you follow my scripts, follow my processes, and follow the Rent-to-Rent 2.0 formula, on average, it should take you 10.5 property viewings to get 1 property deal. And that is through me being involved in thousands of deals, multi-thousands of viewings, and understanding if you get this viewing right, every 10.5 viewings, you should get a deal. And that is for somebody brand new, just like you, starting out. Me, I've got to the point now where, generally speaking, most viewings I do, I can close. Maybe 1 in every 2, I can close. That's a 50% close rate. At the beginning, you're looking at about a 10% close rate. Now, if you do 10.5 viewings and you follow this, on average, you should get a deal. It's that simple. It's a numbers game. And then the second key thing about the viewing is you must, I repeat, you must, okay? You must commit. You must commit on the viewing. A lot of newbie rent-to-renters make the terrible mistake of going to the viewing and then leaving the viewing saying, well, let me go away. I'll think about it. I'll crunch the figures and I'll let you know. You don't want to do that. And I'm going to show you the next step in the ladder in a minute that is the right thing to do here. But disclaimer, just like at the lead, not all agents will want to do this. On the call, not all initial calls are going to go well. And on the viewing as well, not all viewings will go well. Now, depending on whether you opt for a bit more of a direct approach with the call or indirect approach, you may get on the viewing, and at this point, they may not be 100% sure exactly what our business model is. And I'm just going to level with you. I've had a few scenarios where I've gone to the viewing, they found out what I'm doing, and they've kicked me out, right? It can happen. But if this does happen, do not worry, okay? Because we want to attract the landlords who are the right fit, the agents who are the right fit. In most scenarios, 10.5 viewings gets you the deal, but you must commit. Now we're starting to get a little bit warmer now. I know you're starting to feel the pressure at this point, right? Because you are getting to the end of this property viewing and the next step is absolutely key. Now, when I tell people that I do this, they're like, how can you do this? In fact, I'm going to actually do this in green because this is a key stage. What you need to do on the viewing, that's right, I repeat, on the viewing is you have to say yes. You have to say yes. And I call this a pre-agreement. In other words, you want to tie the landlord or the agent down that in principle, if you can agree on the rent, okay, if you can agree on the rent, and if you can agree on the term, this is the length of the agreement, you are 80% of the way there. So at the end of the viewing, you want to say, hey, Amy, love the property. I'd love to move forward. What did you say the rent was? Okay, they're going to say £1,200. And you're going to say this. If I was to guarantee your rent for 3 years, would there be any movement on the rent? And they might say no. And then you're going to say, but if I offered you £1,200 for 3 years, would we be able to move forward today? And they're going to hopefully say yes, or they're going to tell you some objections. They're going to be like, oh, well, I'm not sure about the concept, or we've got 10 more viewings this week, or I need to run it by my wife, or I need to know more about your company. But you need to say yes. And when you say yes, it does two things. The first thing it does is it shows confidence. It shows that you're willing to commit. The second thing is it disrupts the usual process. Because normally, if a family goes and views a property, they have to go, nip to the coffee shop, have dinner, speak to Auntie Jean, and discuss it before committing. So if you can go there looking smart, smelling fresh, with your leaflet, with your contracts, and say, hey, I'm willing to move forward now, that lets them know you mean business. And that is really refreshing for a landlord that just wants to let their property out. So good news, you've left the viewing now knowing that you've got a pre-agreement that if you can deliver that rent and that term, in principle, you've got yourself a deal. So what you want to do is you want to leave that property viewing, and as quickly as possible, you want to actually now send them an offer. So we're getting really close now. And when you send this offer, guys, whatever you do, keep it simple. Because the aim of this offer email or letter, it will be an email, but traditionally we would have called it a letter. You want to invite them to a further call, okay? And this email should just read, hey, thanks so much for showing me around the property. As discussed, I'd be delighted to offer you £1,200 for 3 years. If this is acceptable, I'd love to arrange a call for us to discuss the finer details. Thanks, Simon. That is it, okay? Benito. That's all you've got to do. Then it's getting a little bit hot now, guys. We are getting a little bit close now. What we then do is you then want to arrange what I like to call the close call. We'll call it the C call. And on this call, this is when we are going to be negotiating and discussing the terms. Now, here's the thing. If you mention the terms too early, if you start talking about no deposits, rent-free periods, having the property for 3 weeks without paying rent, the fact that you want to run serviced accommodation, the fact that you want to turn the property into HMO, if you mention all of this technical stuff too early on in the ladder, it's going to fall out of bed. And they're just going to be like, do you know what? This is too much. So what we do is when questions come up, sure, we're very honest and transparent, but we don't want to get into the technicalities until the close call. This is when we can start tackle all the additional legalities. This is when we can talk about the works that are required. The fact that we're not going to pay a deposit, guys. Because by the way, on average, from this ladder and following this, on average, I save my mentees $5,000 per deal straight out of the gate because we never pay a deposit. Okay. Very, very rarely. Sometimes with agents, but never with landlords. We never pay a deposit, and we always negotiate at least 2 weeks rent-free period. So we get the keys today. We can furnish the property, do the photo shoot, do all the marketing. So by the time we pay rent, we're already generating income. And that's how I typically save my clients £5,000 per deal. Unbelievable stuff. Now, this close call is going to get a little bit hot. All right? It's going to get a little bit hot. So what I want you to do, if you get to this stage, it's a great idea to do it on Zoom. It's also a great idea to do it over a cup of coffee at your local cafe because you can build rapport. And all you want to do is agree on the rent, agree on the term, agree on the start dates. Okay, so that's going to be the date of the contract. You want to do the effective date, the day you get the keys, and you want to do the first payment date. You then want to talk about the works that they're going to do, the works that you're going to do. You want to dig deeper into the business model, of course. And then the last thing that you want to do is go through any specially negotiated clauses. Keep this nice and simple, build a load of rapport. Okay, and then what's going to happen is that's going to lead you to the final stage. Hope you're getting value from the video. If you're looking to get more rent-to-rent deals, okay, generate more money from the deals that you've got, or perhaps systemize your portfolio to free up your time so you're not giving yourself another day job, go ahead, hit the link below, book a call with me or my team, and let's see if we can help you on your way. Anyway, back to the video. So you are so close to your deal now, but there's still a final step. And if you get this wrong, everything you've done previously just falls to the ground. And this is heart-wrenching because I've been in this position so many times where the deal was fell through because I've not followed this. But you've got to get this next part right. And that is, of course, the contracts, guys. I'm going to squeeze an S in there. This is when it's time to get the contracts locked in. Now, I speak to a lot of you, I do a lot of masterclasses, I do loads of content, and one of the biggest challenges people have is the contracts. Because here's the thing, some of this stuff you could try and fudge together, but what you can't do is you can't guess with the contracts. And I've seen people sign the wrong contracts and lose thousands, in fact, tens of thousands of pounds because the landlords took the property back after a few months because you've not done it right. Or for whatever reason, this property doesn't work for you and you're committed to 5 years rather than being able to give a termination clause with a couple of months. So this contract is essential. Disclaimer, whatever you do, please do not guess this. You need to have the right contracts. And if you don't have the right contracts, do not move towards the deal. Do not do it. But the beautiful thing about this ladder is that if you've done the close call correctly, it's just simply a case of having the right agreements and popping these terms that are pre-agreed into the contract. Now, what a lot of you do is you send the contract without doing the close call, and then there's so many different bits of information that you don't know that you've not discussed. The deal falls out of bed. But once you've done the close call and agreed things verbally, it's really easy to pop those terms into the contract.